All right, we're just gonna try and go to the sucker off the bat. Don't have the best internet here, making sure that we got a signal. Yeah, so we're reacting. We just had Montaric Brown and Mike Wood a chance to talk to, just kind of reacting from practice, what they had to say. I want to start with what Mike Woods had to say on his YouTube channel, Woodful. If you're not subscribed, a really good inside look that I would encourage you probably want to be subscribed to. Mike talks about a variety of different things, being a student athlete. There were some drills that he did with Felipe Franks and Kendall Catalan a while back. It's just kind of a cool aspect with social media and stuff being so prevalent nowadays. I would encourage y'all, if y'all see more of not only just the stuff on the field, because we as media members aren't getting to see a ton right now, this would be good insight to kind of just what's going on, what he and the team thinks about everything. He touched on the schedule, and I want to talk about that first. Here's what Mike had to say about the schedule and how they're approaching it. This is going to work for me, I hope. Come on.
No team has an opportunity in Arkansas. So we ain't fearing nothing, scared. Like, we know what we up against, but we know what we got. We got the wide receiver position, dogs. Running back position, dogs. Quarterback position, dogs. Like, we are ready. We ain't fearing nothing. We ready, bro.
I hope they are, man. They got a gauntlet of a schedule this year. You start with Georgia, then you go through Alabama, LSU, Florida. I mean, these are the elite teams not only in the SEC, but in college football. So it's going to be very important that they have this mentality when it comes to talking about this football team. You love hearing that from Mike. I asked him about that, and he said kind of the same thing. He was just like, we have to have this mentality. I mean, it's an us against the world type of dilemma at this point. If you're an Arkansas Razorback fan, that's what they're facing, unfortunately. And listen, the team is really stacked. There's a lot of chips stacked against this football team right now. That's why you're hoping that this team can come ready to play. You don't expect them to beat Georgia this first game, but you expect some effort. You expect some intensity when it comes to all this. Because the last couple years, you've gotten absolutely swallowed up by a bunch of different football teams. Some, which was expected, others, not so much. So let's go into some of these quotes that these guys had to say via practice. And Andy's going to have this stuff for you on YouTube. We're doing all these press conference Zoom now because of COVID. So whether it's Sam Pittman, whether it's Montaric Brown, Mike Woods, Andy's going to have these up for you on hitthatline.com. Also our YouTube page as well. So you make sure you're subscribed there. Lisa, I'm glad you like this. Just kind of quick reaction. We're kind of trying to do more here at ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com, giving you guys the most content. I know you guys are itching for all things football right now, so just trying to do our part here at ESPN Arkansas and hitthatline.com. So Mike said he scored a couple times today. He said he caught one from Felipe, and I'm forgetting who else he said he caught one from. But this is through various drills, scrimmages, like all that stuff they're going through right now. But he did say he scored a couple touchdowns today. I thought one of the interesting quotes that he had to say was that Coach Pittman doesn't babysit us. He tells us this is our team. Why I think that's important, and we can always talk about players coach. We can talk about kind of the stricter regimen of a college football coach. At the end of the day, it's just about the W's that you have at the end of the season. It's about what ends up happening. And if your players respect you, when from all intents and purposes, whether it's social media, whether it's talking to these players privately or publicly, and I think the private stuff is important. The guys that you get from sources on the team, the guys that you get from talking to different players via social media, via text or whatever. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm the most locked in, intense guy when it comes to that stuff, but I have a few connections over there. And they say it's not just word fluff. They say it's not just crap. It's actually realistic. This is what we think about Sam Pittman. And again, that's very important that this football team, with everything surrounded COVID, with everything surrounded how difficult the schedule is going to be, you can't have this team cracking apart. If he's going to build a foundation, it's like the parables. You build on the rock or you build it on the sand. Sam Pittman, you hope, is building his foundation on sand. It looked like, unfortunately, that he's building his house on a rock. You hope that that's the case rather than what seemed like Chad Morris building his foundation on sand. And I think a lot of times people point to Chad Morris trying to go outside and then in with skill position players rather than building inside with trench players and stuff. I think Sam Pittman being in this league knows that you can't win football games without having guys up front. So while the skill position players, don't get me wrong, like Joe Adams, Greg Childs, Darius Wright, Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis, and on, Dennis Johnson, you go on and on and on. They're very important. But in order to win in this league, you can have great skill position players and still have a crappy offensive and defensive line, and you're not going to get very far as that is concerned. Y'all, by the way, make sure you're following our social media accounts on Facebook. Make sure you're following our social media account on Twitter at HitThatLineAR. Our Facebook and Instagram account is at HitThatLine. You can also find our YouTube page is at HitThatLine as well. If you want to comment at any time, for those that didn't get to see us do this rapid reaction the other day, we'll pin your comment to the video and we'll discuss it. So any comment you want to get in, you can get in through Facebook, you can get in through YouTube, and you can get in through Twitter. We'll talk about it as long as it's pertinent to the conversation. I don't want to talk about a variety of political topics right now, obviously, but as long as it's football related, even if it's basketball related a little bit, we can touch on it. All right, let's see what else we can get into. All right, so the other thing that people continuously talk about, including us, on the Morning Rush, halftime, Ruskin and Zach, is these rankings. Vegas came out, Bovada came out with the season lines, and Arkansas was at 2. There was another line, and I'm forgetting the source, but Arkansas and Vandy were tied for 1.5 wins this upcoming season. So there's not a lot of hope this Razorback team does and has a productive season outside of that locker room. Now, you hope everything going on inside that locker room actually manifests to something on the field. Now, you heard stuff these last couple seasons, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, nothing was actually produced. You actually now have to produce on the football field. It can't just be word gibberish off the football field and then no production. There has to be some sort of production when it comes to all of this. And Mike seems, as a junior and as really one of the better wide receivers on this football team, I would say it's him, Traylon, and Trey Knox are the 3 guys you point to, and I think that's relatively easy. I think anyone with 2 eyeballs can see that. It was funny. I asked Montaric, I was like, man, which is the most difficult guy you got to cover? And he was like, Traylon Burks. He's like, I call him Julio Jones. Talked about how he thinks he's going to be an NFL guy, can run, has got the foot speed. I mean, can do it all. So I think it's pretty consensus that Traylon Burks is probably the best wide receiver in that locker room. But it's not like Trey Knox and Mike Woods are slouch. I mean, Mike led the team in receiving yards last year. Trey's 6'5", got a lot of potential. You just got to get those dudes the ball, man. And I know that Mike was talking about that he texts the wide receivers every single day. It's like, hey, we need to get in work before and we need to get in work after. That's very important that this football team continues to put in extra work, extra effort. Because I got news for you. This team needs all of it. And listen, it sucks to say, but this team needs the extra work, needs the extra energy, needs the extra practice time in order to be able to compete this fall. And I think kind of going along the lines of what Mike was talking about, there's no better opportunity to prove than there's not a better team out there with a better opportunity to prove than Arkansas. And what Montaric was talking about during the press conference earlier is he says, we got to block out this outside noise. The only ones that opinions that we should care about is the coaches in that locker room. That's very important. Now, you as fans, I know that you want to be heard. You want to make sure. And listen, when the Razorback football team, basketball team, or baseball team does well, they want to hear the adulation. They want to hear your applause. They want to feel the pats on the back. Just like I do when I do a really good radio segment or a really good radio show. Some would say that never happens. Ha. But I think the aspect behind just getting the good stuff, well, if you're going to want that, it also comes with the bad stuff. So you have to be able to couple that and avoid social media. Really, not just avoid it after defeats, after wins too, because you read your press clippings, you get too locked in on certain things, and that can be just as bad than just reading over distasteful comments on social media after a tough loss or after a blowout loss. You got to just tune that out. And again, that's difficult for me to do sometimes because I'm consistently on social media looking for college football updates, looking for show topics. And every once in a while, there'll be someone or a couple people chime in, chirp, just troll. And listen, it's not an easy thing to do, but I turn my notifications off for a variety of reasons. Number one, so I'm not on Twitter 24/7 because I freaking love Twitter. Number two, the majority of the notifications you get aren't that helpful for the most part. So these players, you hope, continue to tune these out, because regardless if they say that they don't care what the outside world thinks, the most non-aggressive person still is hurt by distasteful opinions. Now, to what extent, it varies on the person, but that still happens. Last little note from Montaric Brown, talking about Felipe Franks. Many of you have been wondering, you want to see what he looks like. The more highlights, the better when it comes to Felipe Franks. Well, according to Montaric, Felipe can pretty much put the ball anywhere he wants to. I think that's important, that he continues to have accuracy, because I know one of his problems in the past at Florida is he's been a little erratic at times. He hasn't been consistent enough, which I think you hope that that's not the case this upcoming season. You need him to be as accurate. You need him to be as deadly as possible when it comes to playing the quarterback position. So, again, any comments you get in here, at least I know you like this. We're going to continue to do this after press conferences, after big breaking news. Don't want to really interrupt halftime or Ruskin and Zach, but anytime it's after that, or if it's in the 2 to 3 slot, I'll pop it every once in a while. Got to figure out how this webcam stops adjusting in and out. I just got this from the station. It's been just kind of holding out a little bit, and I was like, I'll see if I can use it. I got to fiddle with it a little bit, see if we can get this sucker working without that. So, all right, that's going to do it. 7 o'clock, I got to still prep for the show tomorrow. Appreciate all y'all hopping on. Again, if you want to watch the press conferences in their entirety, go to hitthatline.com, go to YouTube. Should be up in a bit. Andy will get those up for you. Make sure you're tuning in the Morning Rush tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. You can do it on Facebook. You can do it on YouTube, Twitter, TuneIn app, hitthatline.com. Also, our 5 radio stations, 95.3 Fort Smith River Valley, 104.3 Harrison Mountain Home, 96.3 Hot Springs Central Arkansas, 97.1 Camden, and then all up there in old NWA, 99.5, 1290, and 95.3 in Northwest Arkansas. So I appreciate everyone hopping on. We'll talk tomorrow morning here.